Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to West Virginia Right Now. I'm your host, Chris Miller, along with
Wes Thompson.
And we are here talking about an incredible set of episodes that we filmed for this podcast all about West Virginia. And we've had absolutely amazing guests, and we've learned a ton. This has been a really, really fun thing to take on.
We've had a lot of different topics that I think deeply affect the state of West Virginia. And Chris, it's no secret that you are running for governor, and so these were topics that were very near and dear to you. And we talked about everything from education to jobs to coal to the opioid epidemic to the civil discourse to we had guests on, like Bill Cole came on and was just great. Talked about the history of legislation in West Virginia, and I think there's just a lot to be learned.
We had Mike Hall, who helped us really dig into understanding the budget at the state of West Virginia's level. We had Brandon Steele, who's a legislator right now, that came in and talked about a lot of stuff. I mean, the list goes on and on. We had Reed Byers and Nikki Thomas, who both had incredibly different perspectives on the opiate epidemic and also addiction, and then also going through recovery and then being able to move forward and make an impact not only in their own life, but in the lives of other people.
And let me tell you something, as you're looking at these different episodes, the ones that he just mentioned, and there's others, I mean, I think you should check them all out, but the powerful testimonials from the individuals that you just brought up, talking about recovery and addiction and how bad things got to how good things got later through recovery. That's an inspirational story that anyone out there can get value out of. So many people in our area are touched by that. But even if you're not, you will find value in the inspirational stories that are told. So totally check it out. And speaking of inspiration, we also had a young athlete on here that, if you've ever seen the movie Rudy, there's this athlete. He was an Orthodox Jewish American who was
Never played high school football before in his life, and he literally, through hard work and determination, was able to walk on at Texas A&M and play for Jimbo Fisher, who is a West Virginian.
That's right.
At the University of Texas A&M, and he's going into his second season. And talk about just an awesome, like feel-good story, man.
It is exactly everything that you want from the story of perseverance and effort and doing all the little things. And by the way, there's an element of faith in that episode.
Yes, absolutely.
Because he just keeps getting told no and just keeps absolutely deciding to not take that answer.
And that underlying element of hard work and determination, and that hard work is undefeated, and he just never quits. He just kept going. Like, that's a message that everybody needs to be reminded of, because it's so true, especially in this political age where we're told, you are a victim of your circumstance and you can't do anything, and you are a victim of wherever you're born, and the government should take care of you, which real life honestly is the exact opposite of that.
Well, one of the things that I would say, whether it's his story of getting on the team or the addiction recovery stories, it really is. I mean, you want to talk about dire circumstances in some of these stories. I mean, what they came from, where they started to where they got. Listen, you want to talk about pull yourself up from your bootstraps type of stories.
Oh, you're going to watch. There are certain episodes where Wes and I are just watching with our jaws dropped.
Yeah.
As we hear about what people have done, what they have lived through, and what they've made out of their lives afterwards. It was incredibly inspirational. We then also heard the legal aspect from Mike Stewart, who was a federal prosecutor and is now inside of politics in West Virginia.
If there's an episode too about that, you got to check out the Mike Stewart episode. He goes in. Victims of this epidemic, he knows every single one of their names, and he starts pulling pictures out of his wallet and putting them down and remembers each and every individual story. It's just how personal it touched him. It's how personal it was to him. And it really meant a lot to us to hear that story.
And it's something that's pretty near and dear to my heart as well. So, we have been plundered by the opiate epidemic. We've been plundered by the pharmaceutical companies. We've been represented very, very poorly when it comes to legal representation at the state level, dealing with those lawsuits, and essentially through lobbying and bad negotiation been sold down the river by our Attorney General's office, as well as sold down the river by the pharmaceutical companies and sold down the river by lobbyists, and have literally wound up with pennies on the dollar to impact and fix these things. And it is an issue that everybody really does need to dig in and understand.
I think you just touched on something that's, when you're thinking about checking out some of these episodes, it is a behind the curtain look, because there's some real transparent communication that happens here. Stuff that we all kind of get misinformation sometimes, be that from social media, friends and family, or mainstream media, whatever you want to look at. And when you hear it very real, coming from someone who experienced it, it's undeniable. You're hearing the truth in real time. And that's everything from the serious subjects that we were talking about, but then also these episodes are very educative, because you have Bill Cole came on and talked about the legislative process and trying to work with both sides of the aisle and trying to come to agreement. And Bill Cole was able to do that.
Yeah.
And he goes into how and why. And then we think about things like coal.
Yes.
Coal, the way that it is advertised, the way that it is marketed, the way that it is vilified, it's really interesting. Check that episode out, because you start really understanding the scale of things, what a base load represents, how we avoid brownouts and blackouts, and sort of the irony of electric vehicles, and how that actually has a symbiotic relationship with the coal industry. It might change your mind, I would think. And by the way, it doesn't matter how I think you'll learn from that episode, no matter how you feel about coal.
And quite frankly, no matter which way we look at this, energy is going to be a huge part of the future of the state of West Virginia, with what's happening geopolitically around the world, with the constant desire for growing technology and the need to plug everything into our utility grid and power grid systems. We are going to need more power, and that is going to be West Virginia's place in the emerging 21st and 22nd economies. Because of all the coal that we have, because of the abundance of natural gas that we have, because of the potential for nuclear power, and then also all of the water that passes through our state. West Virginia has an amazing opportunity in front of it, and it's going to be a lot of fun being a part of this and taking what we've got and making sure that it benefits our people here on the ground level. And then also using that as value added in the growing economy in the time coming, to turning West Virginia into the power plant or the battery of the East Coast and exporting our power.
And by the way, when we say exporting, I'm talking about the world.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is I think there are some positive things that are in motion, but West Virginia needs the right leadership to really bring this to fruition. West Virginia is about to have maybe the biggest comeback story in the history of the nation.
Yes, we absolutely positively need a business guy running the ship, though. It is undeniable. The last thing that we need are more bureaucrats and more attorneys and more politicians running our state, especially knowing how important what is coming is.
And Chris, you said something. Just allow me real quick to touch on this, because I know there are people in the state that don't know you. There are people in cities like Huntington and Charleston that know you very well, but I think they know you as the guy in the car commercials who owns a huge automotive group. But I think there's a misrepresentation there, because you manage so much more than that. Could you just real quick, for my benefit and everyone else's, explain to people your acumen for business?
I got very, very lucky in being born into the family that I was born into, and we had two businesses. By the time I got involved, there were 3 businesses, and I was able to grow it to 26, and we employ 400 people inside of West Virginia, another 200 people outside of the state of West Virginia, because we've got businesses in West Virginia, in North Carolina, in Tennessee, and in Kansas. And we are also in all kinds of other things like real estate and insurance and reinsurance and energy as well. So, it is a...
What's the scale, Chris? What are you managing? How many assets in a year? What are you managing?
There's about $750 million that travels through all 26 of our different enterprises every single year. And it's the American dream, right? I'm 2 generations away from abject poverty. My grandfather was born on a dirt floor in Bear Creek, Kentucky. And through hard work and dedication, he went off and fought in the Korean War and also in World War II as a fighter pilot for the Black Sheep Squadron. He then came home and got into business, was able to eventually own his own business. My dad got involved and turned that into 2 and then 3 businesses. And then I was able to get involved and exponentially grow it.
And you said something important, Chris. I think when you started what you just said, and that is you were very lucky to the family that you were born into. There's a lot of people that are watching that goes, oh, just some guy that, grew up the son of a car dealer. Okay. They had money. But I think that what gets missed are the values that were instilled into you that I think trickled down from your grandfather. They're coming from Dutch, and your mom and dad, did the job they did. I think you're hyper aware of what West Virginians are all about.
Absolutely. When I was 10 and a half years old, I told my dad I wanted a pair of Air Jordan tennis shoes. And when he found out they cost $125, you know what he told me? He told me to get a job. So I did, and I woke up every single morning at 5 a.m. to be out delivering newspapers and make sure they were all on everybody's porch. From the time I was 10 and a half years old to the time I was almost 13 years old, every single day. Thanksgiving, Easter, didn't matter. Every day, Sundays, every day. That's what I did. And I've been working ever since.
I know that story, but I'll tell you something even more recent that you have done. So at one point, you're going to have a son that's going to tell this story himself, 20 years from now. And it's going to be that when you get your first car and your father has a large automotive group as a business, what did he get? He got a 12-year-old car. And so I think that's what he got.
Which was an upgrade for me, because my car, when I got my driver's license, it was 1995, and my very first car was a 1970 Malibu. I had to scrape the inside of the windshield off as well as the outside and started 15 minutes ahead of time to get to school.
I think that a lot of people can assume things, and I'm glad we're clearing this up. And one of the other things you brought up were the businesses that you have outside of West Virginia. But I think that it would be we would be wrong to not bring up the fact that I think your entire goal is to bring business and population back into the state.
Well, and that's what we do with our own businesses, right? All of those businesses outside of the state, where that money comes back at the end of the day, it comes back to us and it comes back to our people. And that's the most important thing. And we are in this very unique position where we have this major fiscal cliff and this major financial calamity coming for the state of West Virginia. And it has to do with population. We've been declining in population for a long period of time. We also have an aging population. And Obamacare put pressure on rural states like West Virginia for Medicare and Medicaid expansion. And because of those unique circumstances, our DHHR, or Department of Health and Human Resources budget, will continue to swell until it affects the bond rating statewide and raises dramatically the cost of government. And that's when the tailspin starts, and it could be a bad day for West Virginia. We can fix it, though. We got to start right now. We got to think like business people and think like entrepreneurs and grow our economy and grow the state's population. And the good news is people want to come here because we got what people want.
Well, you've got an affordable cost of living. You've got natural resources. You've got land. I mean, you've got beauty.
Water.
You've got safety and security.
Yes. We have an incredible amount of safety here. We have law enforcement that respects people and it respects citizens and takes care of us. Like, we literally are in a sweet spot because we have what people are looking for because of the craziness that's going on around the world today. And we also have this solid foundation about families here. And we have been a brain drain for a long period of time where our biggest export has been our sons and daughters. And yet still people want to come back here and want to be a part of it because of the influence and the impact of family and how much it has inside of our culture. And we have to stop that from happening. We have to stop the constant, free-for-all of people leaving our state. And it's the exact right time to reverse that trend.
So, Chris, all of the things that you just brought up, these are touched upon throughout the episodes.
Yes.
In different ways, through different voices, through different filters. And I think just to kind of put a bow on all of this before we wrap up, what you're going to see are subjects, topics that affect every West Virginian from top to bottom. And to kind of, notwithstanding the things that you just brought up, I mean, why you... And I don't mean why should they choose you? I mean, why do you want this? Why would you run for governor? You kind of don't need a job, Chris.
Yeah, I don't need a job. I've got plenty of those. I'm a father of 3 fantastic kids. I'm married. I've been married for 20 years now. And I want my kids to see that if you have the aptitude and the ability to do something, then you've got a social and a moral obligation to get involved and make it happen, especially when no one else can. And it just so happens that I've got this unique skill set that literally matches up perfectly to solve the problems that exist for the state of West Virginia and transcend our state and move us into the 21st and the 22nd century. And it is not a time and a set of problems that attorneys and lawyers and politicians and bureaucrats should be solving. It should be us, the everyday average citizens, that literally roll up our sleeves and get to work to make our state better, because the problems that we have here are all caused by the good old boy system and the politicians that have been involved in running and guiding our state for way too long. They're really bad negotiators. They've gotten us into bad deals and they haven't taken care of us in the long run. And I totally want to break down that good old boy system and move us into the 21st and the 22nd century.
So you are dead serious.
Oh, I'm dead serious, yeah.
I think that you want to do this. You want the legacy of the state to be greatness.
You know what? Here's the even better part. On my deathbed, when I look back at everything we're able to accomplish, I don't care if any of the bridges or the buildings are named after me. I don't want anything at all. I don't want any credit. I want to do this because it's the right thing to do, and it's the most important thing that we can do for the state of West Virginia right now.
Well, folks, you're going to watch West Virginia right now. There are multiple episodes. They're already out on all the different platforms. So if you love West Virginia, if you're interested, if you want an education on what's going on in the state, from education to social services to business, and a couple times we talk about how to smoke a pork butt. Listen, you're going to learn something about the state of West Virginia, and we have a lot of conservative guests on the show, but it doesn't matter who you are. You can be left, right, center. You're going to learn, and you're going to, I think, enjoy what we've put together here on West Virginia right now.